I'm gonna introduce you, but you have a long and windy road. Hello, it is Friday. This is the Morning Brushback Podcast. I'm Dan Blewett. I'm here remotely with my Bobby. What should I call you today? I've already used Nemesis. What else? What do I have here, Robert? How do we describe?
I feel like I'm your role model.
My partner in bickering, Bobby Stevens. Bobby, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Good morning. I've got a lot of energy today.
That's wonderful. And we have a great guest today, Mike Ashmore, an excellent sports reporter is here. Mike, how are you?
I'm alive, Blewett. I'm alive. How are you guys doing?
He's alive. Mike, real quick, fill us in a little bit about because you have a pretty, and we were just chatting about this, but you've been all over the place. You're obviously the beat writer for the Somerset Patriots professional baseball team, but you also go to the Super Bowl every year. You go like the NHL All-Star game and the finals. Like, you're all over the place, which is awesome. Your influence keeps growing, and you have a podcast. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Right now, I am working at Whole Foods for $17 an hour, pushing around a shopping cart. But in my past life, yes, okay. I'm the beat writer for the Somerset Patriots. This will be my 18th year, assuming there is a year this year, which I'm sure is a conversation that we can all have. But yeah, I've been doing that. Cover the Super Bowl, cover the Jets. There's really no correlation between covering the Jets and covering the Super Bowl, but
yeah.
Do that. Cover the Stanley Cup final every year. I've done the World Series 6 times. Done a bunch of stuff, and covered you guys as well. So I guess you can say I've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So how did you make that leap? I mean, is it just for the same? Is this for the same newspaper, or who do you do all these different things for?
All the big stuff I do is for a paper in Trenton, New Jersey called the Trentonian. I cover Somerset for the Courier News, the Gannett chain, Asbury Park Press, and all that kind of stuff here in Jersey. And that's pretty separate. But the Trentonian, I was their beat writer for a defunct ECHL team called the Trenton Titans and then the Trenton Devils. And then once I broke the news of my own unemployment by them folding, they gave me their national hockey writer job, and I kind of just branched out from there.
Nice. Okay. That's very cool. Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, Mike is actually mentioned in my book. Mike's an awesome guy. He was someone who vouched for me for honestly like no good reason. I was like an indie ball nobody, and Mike took an interest and wrote about me. And that's something I always appreciated. We would always catch up a little bit. And I know Bobby holds you in high esteem as well, hence the reason you're here on the show today. But we've got – all right, so I think like everyone's off the deep end today. Mike, what are you drinking for breakfast right now?
A little liquid caffeinated breakfast here with a little Mountain Dew. So
that just makes both of us feel ill. I just had mouthwash in my mouth and it made me feel gross. And you're chugging Mountain Dew.
It's only 9 a.m. Not going to kill you.
And Bobby has a headband on. What is happening?
There are no rules. We've said this 2 minutes prior. There are no rules anymore. It's anarchy out here.
There have always been rules.
It's anarchy. We're back in.
Just because you say there are no rules does not mean there are no rules.
You can say anything apparently, especially
you
on
don't
Twitter
have enough
now.
hair to need a headband. What, like?
Yes, I do.
Did Jenny just lend that to you, or?
I use it as it doubles as my mask when I go shopping.
The news of your future fatherhood is covering up your third eye, your conspiracy eye.
How's that?
Mike, do you know about Bobby's conspiracy theory nonsense?
I do not.
He is just a rabid conspiracy theorist. Bill Gates is evil, if you didn't know. Vaccines don't work. What else?
No.
Trump is great. Trump is great.
That's a misinterpretation of my vaccine thoughts.
Is it though?
Yeah. I don't think all of the it's not that all of them don't work. I have questions about some of them, and I have questions about the freedom of which you are allowed to get them. Dan, we cannot spend.
I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start with that.
Well, we don't need to because there's so much more news.
There's a lot of news today. All right, what's on the agenda first here, Bob?
Well, since I'm currently reading it, we have to talk about Andrew Church of the Mets. So Andrew Church, Mets minor leaguer, gets released, goes on Twitter, writes a somewhat coherent paragraph or two.
Somewhat coherent is right, yeah.
But basically calls out the Mets and a certain former football player
Tim Tebow.
And
Yeah, he
Tim
sucks.
Tebow.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Tim Tebow and him taking minor league jobs just to be a whatever baseball clown.
Seems like a decent person. But so this guy he lets it fire. He lets it fire from the hip. Like I'm sure he was wearing a bandana when he wrote this.
Just talk about what he's actually saying. You're rambling.
I gave it to you. He basically bashes the Mets. He bashes the Mets regime. Bashes the whole Tim Tebow performance that's going on with people are getting paid. They aren't seeing any of that. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, he kind of rambles on like how I am right now, but he does talk about just himself as a competitor and how the Mets were just not the right organization, the right fit. But Mike, what do you got? Did you read this rambling he's got?
Yeah, I did. It seems like one of those things that maybe 24 hours from now he may or may not regret putting in a public forum and doing it in a slightly profane fashion like he did. I see this being organically retweeted on my timeline all over the place, and it seems like it's the first time that most people have probably heard of this guy. And it's certainly no disrespect to him either, but it's not really something you want associated with yourself in terms of someone giving you a chance going forward, because what's to say that someone's not going to release him in 3 months and he's just going to rip the crap out of him going forward too. So I think it raises more questions about him than it does about the Mets. But I mean, he certainly, to be fair to him, it seems like he makes some interesting and fair points as well. So
yeah, so I'm looking him up at the moment, which I think is always necessary just for context. Obviously, as like a second round pick, an accomplished kind of journeyman minor leaguer, high school draft pick. So played 7 seasons. Last year he was 24. He's 25 years old now. That's how age works. You go up a year every year.
Good.
Yeah,
points,
I know.
Dan.
Yep. I'm catching myself as I ramble this morning. We're all rambling this morning.
This is the hard-hitting stuff people tune in for.
This is the hard-hitting stuff. But he started jumping around a lot in 2016. So he was in high A, triple A, single A the next year, double A, high A the next year, mostly double A, triple A. And so he's a pretty established double A, triple A player by 22, 23, which is obviously really impressive. His last couple years, a lot more mid-6 ERAs and mid-5. So it looks like he struggled in maybe 2018, 2019. But you can tell from the tone of his writing that he was a guy who, I mean, this is, I think, the number one characteristic he rapped on was that he was a guy who would just go out there and compete, do what they asked him to do, wouldn't say anything about it. And you can really appreciate that about a player. What he did, he called out a lot of coaches in the Mets system who said, and he said basically that there's a lot of guys in there that don't understand the game. And I think we all know that there's more guys like that than ever in pro baseball. And that a lot of guys just don't care about the players. And that's, always a personal opinion. Of course, I think that's also objectively true sometimes. But yeah, there's just a lot of, it's a rant for sure. Called out Tim Tebow without using his name, said it's a toxic organization, toxic culture. The Mets treating their players as pawns in their chess game. So yeah, that's not going to go well if he wants to get back into baseball. And as a 24-year-old, he's probably got a lot left in him for sure. But
I don't see it being a unique story. I see it being unique because he put it out there publicly. His story is not special or unique or anything like that. There are probably hundreds and thousands of guys who feel that way. And obviously I can't speak to the specifics in the Mets organization, but there are tons of guys. Most of the guys who get to indie ball probably feel that way. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, spring training, you hear them, you hear the guys who like to whine are in peak whining form. I have a Somerset memory of that myself. First bunch of days, like, oh, okay, guy. Sorry, you don't belong here. Like, we all belong here, but you don't. Got it. I understand. I got it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I agree with you, Mike. It's hard to know. And I've deleted a lot of tweets over the years, and I tweet stormed at somebody on a nonsensical tweet and last night, and emotions are running high right now. A lot of guys been released. I mean, Bobby's wearing a headband. We just have to double back to the fact that he's wearing a headband. So just life is not as it was.
Life is
it
amazing.
seems.
This guy gets a A+ in my book for coming out. speaking his mind a little bit. The Mets are, I mean, they're a dumpster fire in general. They're the little brother of New York City. They get it feels like any story like this is a Mets story. If you threw it out and said, what team does this guy play for?
But you said it's also an Orioles story. I mean, if this was you, Bob, you'd be writing the same thing. So it's not just a Mets story. It's minor league baseball story.
If you're talking, I'm talking like New York City, like the New York City sports, like this is a total Mets/Jets story. Like this is.
We need John Rocker to comment. We need John Rocker.
I've tried to get him on the podcast. The Tim Tebow stuff is the stuff that jumps out to me the most. Like everybody's fresh off the Michael Jordan documentary. Michael Jordan went to play baseball, threw him in Double-A. By all accounts, had a somewhat successful Double-A stint for a guy who didn't play baseball for 10 years, or longer, 15 years, whatever it was. But the Tim Tebow stuff, it's like they keep throwing him in our face. He's in big league spring training. Like they're talking about whether or not this guy's going to get a call up. Like the fact that this guy isn't doing the laundry in the locker room is a testament to how big of a joke this is after the first year.
What does that mean?
Maybe he is. He should be the clubby.
Wait, are you just making stuff up? He's not. Tim Tebow's not doing laundry. You just made that up. That was just like a completely unsubstantiated.
No, I said the fact that he's not doing the work of the clubby in the clubhouse as opposed to playing.
Okay, I understand. Mike, how do you feel? But what's your stance on Tim Tebow? And you can be as PC as you like since you're still in the industry.
First off, I would say there's two sides to every story, and we don't know if this church kid was the biggest dick in the clubhouse. We don't know that. I mean, we haven't heard the Mets side of this story yet. We're not sure about that. Tebow, I mean, listen, I guess it's become more and more evident over the past couple of months, if anybody wasn't aware already, that baseball is a business. And, Mets saw an opportunity, right or wrong, for some publicity and maybe a feel-good story of some kind at the expense of, some guys who've been doing this for a lot longer. It is what it is. I don't fault Tebow for doing it. I don't fault the Mets for, putting him in that position. It just it's one of those things where it's feels like it's more business than it is baseball to me.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm a little more on the side of screw that guy, but at the same time, you can't fault him for taking it. Like if the opportunity's there and he signs the contract, like he can sign the contract. Like you can't fault him for having an opportunity.
Yeah, I don't feel like he's disingenuous about it either. Like I don't feel like he's doing it for a publicity stunt or anything like that. It feels like I would agree. Yeah, it feels like he has a genuine passion to try to do it. I just don't know if he necessarily has the skill set to get there. But I'm sure people said the same, stuff about Jordan too. So
yeah, I mean he's definitely getting the opportunity because of who he is. It's not
that's clear.
It's not like there's plenty of really good guys that want to be successful that are better at baseball than Tim Tebow that should have that spot. I think that's the big issue with probably Church and anybody else who plays outfield with the Mets that's getting, at bats taken away, that whether or not they have a chance to make it to the big leagues or just a chance to maybe get a cup of coffee in the big leagues. Like that's a huge thing just to make it to the big leagues or like attain a goal. And you got this guy taking up at bats and, in AAA hitting $110. Whatever he's
so here's his numbers. So he played since 2016. So he's played 4 years. Well, 16, 17, 18, 19. So first year, 194. Earned a promotion naturally. Well, that was the fall league. Earned a promotion naturally. So second year, single A and high A hit a combined 226.
Okay, that's
okay. Naturally a promotion to Double A. Right. Hit 273. In Double-A, which is respectable. However, 14 doubles, 6 home runs in 84 at bats for as big a guy as he is playing corner outfield. Overall, not going to get you promoted numbers. No, then last year in Triple-A, 77 games, hit 163 with 4 home runs, 10 doubles, and 98 punch outs. So, yeah, he doesn't belong there. Like we all get that. I mean, whatever. But he hasn't also done abysmally. No, it's not. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
But you gotta know where you're gonna take the heat for the favoritism if you're Tim Tebow, and he knows that. And this guy's been getting heat since he was in college. the 316 under the eye black, whether you like it or dislike it. Like, he was getting all kinds of heat. And I didn't really understand why. Like, you hate a guy because he's too good of a person. Okay. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, he likes Jesus and mission trips, but this is totally, his criticism is warranted. Like, the way he's performing, totally warranted criticism, I think.
I don't know. I go back to the Jordan example where, I mean, you read now, and he had an opportunity to go straight to the big leagues and didn't want to do it, and said he kind of wanted to work his way up and went to AA, and his numbers didn't really warrant the playing time that he was getting, but he was Michael Jordan and it's a business. So it was what it was. I don't know. It feels like it's kind of similar to a lot of things going on in the news. It feels like a lot of history repeating itself. So.
Yeah. Definitely.
So Mike, what's the state of, sports going forward? How do you feel about this negotiation with Major League Baseball? It seems like it's in a pretty bad place at the moment.
Yeah, not good. MLB always kind of felt like the one sure thing that would be able to come back and there wouldn't be, any issues, and obviously fans wouldn't be able to come back, but it felt like there wouldn't be any issue getting a pretty good chunk of their season in, 80, 100 games. And now I wonder if they're going to get anything in with kind of the tone of the negotiations, I guess, with the Players Association and MLB. It doesn't look good. And obviously seen a lot of players kind of speak up. Trevor Bauer was pretty vocal about what he said about Scott Boras, kind of influences things. Max Scherzer spoke up. A lot of guys seem to be kind of speaking up, and it kind of, obviously it's not a strike, but it feels like it kind of going back to that time.
Yeah. What do you feel like what are the core tenets that they have to solve to really get this done? I mean, is it just, or do you see players conceding anything at this point? It seems like they don't want to. Nothing.
No. And I mean, if a prorated salary was negotiated in already, then why should they?
Yeah, that's fair. Bobby, where do you fall on this issue?
Bobby,
what does Bill Gates have to do with the? Let's go through Bill Gates's role here in
Bill Gates
the negotiation.
I'm surprised he doesn't own a team. Honestly, he's got the money. That's like the natural progression of power, run sports and everything.
No, see, here's why he's not owning a team. Do you know why? Because he actually is interested in helping helping people, and he's putting his money into public health.
It's not true.
It seems pretty self-evident, but
no.
Okay, sure. Go on.
So the negotiation thing is so I want to backtrack because we talked about Boras. I tweeted this out. Like, Boras is a good player advocate. Now, the issue I think Bauer has with Boras that is unclear in his tweet is that the rumor is Boras is going around trying to get new clients out of this. Like, he's trying to poach players and say, look, my players are all going to get paid their full salary because I'm I negotiated a better contract, so I can do that for you. That seems to be the Boras issue. But Scott Boras as a player advocate is somebody that the players, they need him on their side. Like, this guy has gotten the most money out of owners. He gets the best contracts for his players, whether they deserve them or not, money-wise, length-wise. So, like, Bauer, I'm just talking Bauer specifically, like, I get where he's coming from, and I'm not a Bauer fan. I understand what his issue is because he does have a small-time agent. I think his agent is a female athlete from UCLA that he went to school with. But you got to pick your battles, and especially publicly, like, Scott Boras is somebody you need on your side in this situation. Like, the owners have you by the balls. They just do. At the end of the day, they don't need these guys to play. They just don't. And that's an unfortunate.
How do you justify that?
I justify it so I'm a White Sox fan, right? Like, I live in Chicago. There's Cubs fans.
Yeah.
Like,
tie White Sox into this. Go ahead.
Well, players come and go, right? Like, the Cubs have prominent players: Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant. In a few years, like, if they don't play this year, the Cubs fans are going to be all up in arms, right? Blah, blah, blah. But those people are still going to be Cubs fans. Like, players come and go. And those guys, they can't play forever. So, we all know about the strike of 94, everything that happened, but I couldn't name specific players. I know if my team was affected, maybe. I'm a little too young to remember that place in history. Dan, probably you too. But there's always going to be the Cubs. Like, but the players on these teams, like, they're really fighting for guys that are coming after them in like any strike. So these guys they're taking all the risk. Like, the owners, are they taking a risk? Maybe, like, they might lose some money in the short term, but these guys have the money. So I don't know that you should.
Mike, where do you fall on this issue?
I think we're old enough to remember replacement players when that was kind of a thing, and guys were, crossing the line. I know Shane Spencer, who was, Stevens, was,
Scab, yeah,
was one of those guys, and is always associated with that, Dan, as kind of being a scab of sorts. But fans hated that, obviously. But that was a thing in the NFL when there was a strike too. They actually played with replacement players. I think in the mid '80s they tried to do that. And fans hated that. So while I agree the players come and go, I think, if it ever gets to a point where they try to do some sort of, replacements, or a lot of guys elect not to play, fans aren't going to put up with it. And obviously they're not able to be at the ballpark right now, given what's going on, but nobody's going to want to watch that.
I disagree.
Bobby, are you in playing shape? Bobby, are you in playing shape?
I'm in playing shape, and I'm in like submarine pitching shape in case anybody needs somebody. But I think this is what's so unique about what's happening right now is if you put anything on television, American sports, it's going to be watched. I saw the first league that's coming back is women's soccer. I think women's soccer league is the first one that's going to reopen, at least right now. People are going to watch that at a much higher clip than they would have watched women's soccer. 100%.
Yes and no. I mean,
go, Mike.
Look at the KBO. KBO was the hottest thing like 2-3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a damn thing about it over the past week or two, man. Like,
no, yeah. But the flip of that is KBO is what time that it's on is 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And KBO is not really a thing like in the US to begin with. Not that women's soccer is.
Women's soccer is not either. I mean, it's like it's only a thing like every once in a while. Most of these Olympic sports are very obscure and poorly watched. Like, does anyone care about the pentathlon or decathlon or the biathlon or
yes, we do.
Or just like name nearly all Olympic sports? No one cares about them almost ever.
Oh, we do, Dan.
If they were on regularly, Mike, how often would people watch the biathlon if that was on right now? Skiing around, shooting at targets.
I'd watch the hell out of curling right now. That's
Oh yeah. But I think all right, so I mean, women's soccer, whatever, you watch, you don't, but you're going to watch like whatever's on TV now, like baseball's missing the players are missing the boat.
Well, we all agree on that for sure.
That people are going to watch, whether it's scab players or they're taking these minor leaguers and throwing them out there. I think, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would take that title as scab if someone's like, hey, come play for the Cubs right now. I don't know about you.
Well, I would love to go just throw 87 right now and like destroy my shoulder completely and give up a couple bombs on TV and just not care. I mean, like, my career is well past, so I'd go out there, but I wouldn't want to watch me. I wouldn't want to watch Bobby Stevens playing shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. I'd be like, what is this trash? I'd turn it off. Absolutely, me? I would not. No, it's Mike. It's not baseball. It's not interchangeable just from the uniform. Mike, how do you feel about that?
Oh, man. So
it is, though.
It's not, though. It's not.
So if you're like, all right, we're going to start up the MLB, but we're going to have 8 teams, and you take the 8 Atlantic League teams that are currently established and you have their rosters and you bring them to the big leagues, is the ratings and the interest that you're going to get in that. And I love covering indie ball. It's no disrespect to any of you guys or anybody who plays indie ball or anything like that. Are the ratings, is the interest going to be exactly what it was compared to quote unquote actual big league guys?
No, absolutely not. But people will watch it.
The same way they'll watch a train wreck.
Hey. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you're saying people will watch it is a really vague term. Like, sure, some people watch it like eating beans out of a can, like, and they're like under living under a tunnel, under a bridge. Like, they'll watch it, but they're not like. I care so little about KBO. People are talking about KBO. I'm like, I would rather watch Mike drink Mountain Dew than watch KBO.
And I just think it's so. I think
you can't talk about it. You can't talk about Bobby Stevens playing shortstop for the New York Yankees. You can't talk about this scrub Dan Blewett pitching like
But you
starting
can because
no, you
because
can't
it's
because no one cares at all.
but
It's
nobody
like
but nobody cares
know
who's
it's
playing
temporary.
nobody cares who's playing on the any of these big league teams either, sans a few star players.
I disagree.
Like
They're
there's
still
only
like,
so
this
many
is our
star
guy. These
players.
are our guys. Like, this is our future.
But
There's a difference.
but there's very popular big leaguers that aren't superstars, that aren't high paid guys. Like there's the Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, category of guys that are well known around the country.
Which are not in the same category.
But those are the guys
Skill-wise.
those are guys that need the mouthpiece, right? Like if you're gonna lead the charge, you lead the charge with your best guys. You don't lead you don't take the middle reliever from the White Sox as like your mouthpiece for the union, because people on the White Sox don't care essentially who that guy is. So like Trevor Bauer's taking like he's in the forefront of it, right? He's a pretty prominent big league pitcher, but if Trevor Bauer never plays baseball again, like that'll be a sad story for Trevor Bauer. But the Indians and the Reds, whatever team he's on now, the Reds, they're going on. Like the Cincinnati Reds will exist, and there will be another Trevor Bauer that comes along. And it's just like, I feel for the players because they have to make the sacrifice. Like the players are going to get screwed regardless. They're not going to get a 50-50 split. They're not going to get a prorated 50% version of their salary. And that's just what's going to happen. I hate to burst any of their bubbles. I think they're going to get that money. They're not, because I do understand where the owners are coming from, saying, if we play the season with no fans and we pay their prorated salaries accordingly, we're going to lose $500 million. And if we just don't play all together, we're only going to lose $200 million. Like people keep giving the argument. I think this argument is BS. It's that, oh, well, they've got billions of dollars. Like who cares? Those people, they didn't get billions of dollars because they just throw hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain. Like they're making business decisions. They're not making good to the country decisions. They don't care. Like people don't get that rich because they care about everybody. Like at some point they were knocking people off left and right.
My commentary on Bobby's point.
So where's the leverage for the players then? Because if the owners lose $500 million if they play, and only $200 million, say, just using your numbers, if they don't, and the players are like, well, we don't want to take your deal, we're going to walk away, then okay, great, you just saved the owners $300 million. So what do the players have collectively to kind of bank on here?
I don't know. That's a great question, Mike, and I don't know what the players' leverage is. I mean, I think there's leverage in being a cohesive unit. Like, look, there are no scabs. We're not going to play baseball. And then the further along this gets, maybe if it gets into next year, like the numbers really start to take a hit on some of these teams. And the owners aren't stupid. Like they know they need workers, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to take the numbers that have been thrown out there, like the amount hit in revenue that they're going to take if they've got to pay these prorated salaries. I think they're willing to stand pat. That's how I feel. If I was an owner, they're probably willing to stand pat at least for the rest of this year, based on all this crap that's going on.
Well, I think the finances of business ownership are nebulous. They're not like, here's an example. Elon Musk, okay? He's a billionaire, maybe like a couple times over. I'm not sure his exact net worth.
30-something billion.
I don't know. But either way, I read an interesting article that he almost has no cash to his name. He actually takes out personal loans. This is true. Not conspiracy. He has to take out personal loans to basically pay his bills. He just sold a bunch of houses, which I think helped him. But this is a long, really interesting article about Elon Musk and how basically all of his net worth is tied up in actual stock in Tesla, in SpaceX, in his businesses and stuff like that. He doesn't really have any cash to even give himself or give a loan to his. There's a quote about his brother asking for a loan. He's like, dude, I don't have any money. This. I don't have anything to give you. I'd have to take out a loan to give you a loan. So the finances of being a billionaire and owning a baseball team, it's not exactly clear. They just can say, here you go, everyone. If they're still bleeding $50-100 million because of a summer, it's not clear they could just have all the cash to give it. I mean, Mike, what do you know about the finances of sports teams?
I feel like if your finances are like that, then you probably shouldn't be owning a sports team. But that's just me. I feel like you kind of have to, not necessarily bank on something like this happening, but at least be prepared for something like this happening. And it seems like a lot of these owners are just very ill prepared for any of this that's gone on. And obviously this is all unprecedented and unpredictable, but it doesn't seem like anybody has their what together right now.
Well, I think you're right, but again, I don't want to feel like we're supporting like what the owners are doing here. Like in a perfect world, the players.
I just want to be on the other side of whatever side Trevor Bauer's on. I just want to stay on the other side because he's the worst. He's just the worst. And let me read Scott Boris's tweet for those who haven't, or not Scott Boris's tweet, but so apparently. What got Bauer upset? It's not clear based on the reports what he's upset about, but I guess Scott Boris sent an email to his clients, and here's a little thing from it. Remember, games cannot be played without you. Players should not agree to further pay cuts to bail out the owners. Let owners take some of their record revenues and profits from the past several years and pay you the prorated salaries you agreed to accept, or let them borrow against the asset values they created from the use of those profits players generated. So that's who knows if that's the exact thing. We're just not really privy to the inside of it, so I don't know. But I do know that Trevor Bauer's just emotionally just one of the stupidest humans it seems like out there, tweeting nonstop like our president. But anyway, so whatever side he's on, I want to stay on the other side. So that makes me a scab. I'll go pitch or play shortstop. I'll make 11 errors a game. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on with all that. I also just don't know. I mean, the thing they're talking about with businesses, and I read and listen a lot about business, and I recently made my first stock purchase. Go me.
Congrats.
Go me.
What'd you purchase?
Go me. I'm not gonna disclose at this time.
We give stock tips on this show.
It's potentially a good time to get into stocks. But anyway, a lot of businesses, there's no possible way they could be prepared for this. Like there's no amount of money like the airline companies. Yeah, they did a lot of stupid things, buying back their own stocks. A lot of companies were buying back their own shares, and they got a lot of criticism for that. But even if they weren't doing that, it's not like they were gonna these companies can have 12 months of salary just floating in the bank like Apple does. It's very, very rare for most businesses. Restaurants, like these teams that have huge payrolls, they just can't possibly have that much money to survive for any significant period of time until they just really plunge off. So I don't know the finances of all this stuff. I really just don't. So I don't have strong opinions of how, but we just keep saying like it's billionaires versus everyone else. And I get that. Like David Price shouldn't have to give out $1,000 per minor leaguer. But then again, the Major League Baseball Players Association, they don't do anything for minor league players' rights. So screw them too. Like, why don't they have something like, why don't they make conditions improve for minor league baseball players? Mike, do you know anything about that?
It feels like for years people have been kind of begging minor leaguers to unionize, and if this doesn't do it, what will?
Yeah,
which I don't think will ever happen.
Well, someone's got to be like, they're poor. There has to be something. And why don't the major leaguers care about the minor leaguers? They act like they do, but they don't. I mean, two starts of Max Scherzer, and I think Max Scherzer, from all records, is a super stand-up guy. But like 2 starts worth of his salary pays for what? Entire organizations like salaries for for the whole year in the minor leagues. Yeah. Like the disparity is insane.
That discussion with minor leaguers has been obviously long-standing. They're underpaid. They work all these long hours. Like, how are they supposed to get to the big leagues without the proper nutrition because they don't get paid enough money? But that's like, the cream always rises to the top. Like, the best players always rise through the system. But also, like, that is part of the allure, like the nostalgia of minor league baseball. Like, you ride the bus. It's not a luxury thing. Yes, should they get paid more money? Yeah, in a perfect world, probably. But does anybody need to pay these guys more money? Absolutely not, because there are guys banging down the door to get those jobs. You got guys, especially guys from the places other than America, where the amount of money they get in the minor leagues is actually not a bad living wage for them back home. So I don't think minor leaguers are ever going to unionize, because if they do, those guys are just going to get sent home, and eventually they're going to be too old to play in the minor leagues, and they're going to be useless to these owners anyways.
Well, I don't know Mike, do you know much about unionizing? How do you unionize? Do you just go to Walmart, you get like a kit? Like, how does it work?
I'm pretty sure it's how it works. It's right next to the Mountain Dew, actually. Have you guys covered, I'm sure you have at some point in the show, have you guys actually covered how much minor leaguers make or how little minor leaguers make? Because I think a lot of people listening or watching really don't, and I'm sure they do more so now than they have in the past, but don't really have an understanding of the pennies on the dollar that you guys probably made during your career in comparison to, what really you deserve.
We haven't. We talked a good amount about indie ball with Chris Carminucci, who I'm sure you know.
Sure, yeah.
But why don't you go into it a little bit, Mike?
Oh man, so
Start us off.
Atlantic League, for example, which is where I met both of you fine folks. The max salary per month is $3,000. Nobody makes it.
Back up, Mike. Tell people what the Atlantic League is, because people don't know what that is either.
Okay. Atlantic League is an independent baseball league that is largely considered, and is deservedly so, to be considered the best independent league in the country. It's where a lot of former major leaguers go, a lot of guys with AA, AAA time, etc., and is known for getting a lot of guys back to affiliated baseball, a lot back to the big leagues, to Mexico and all sorts of places. So it's a good level of ball. Guys usually compared to AA, AAA, usually depending on the pitching that night. Stevens, am I wrong?
You are very correct.
Okay.
So notable signees, Rich Hill recently was a Long Island Duck.
Yeah, Rich Hill.
Back in 2015.
Yeah.
Who are some other ones?
Jose Canseco, Ricky Henderson, John Rocker, you brought up, former Long Island Duck great, John Rocker.
Dontrell Willis.
Dontrell Willis. Yeah.
Bill Hall was there.
Been a lot of really recognizable kind of name brand kind of guys who have been through that league. But yeah, the Mac. Go ahead.
Who was the lefty from the Brewers who was like a first round pick who I pitched against in 2015-16?
What team?
Do you remember? He was with you guys with Somerset. Left in the hand swinger, had crazy pop, but hit like 190 for you guys. Like you just didn't have it.
Matt Gamble?
Yeah, Matt Gamble.
Yeah. That's
he was a recognizable name.
Yeah.
At least, to some people who are, I guess if you're like a more of a baseball insider, he'd be recognizable.
He went to the Futures game. Like he has he has the name. It was probably about that time for him. Nice guy. Probably about that time for him. But to see the max salary there is $3,000 a month. And like I said, nobody makes that. I'm sure you guys didn't come close to making that there.
Bobby, what did you make?
I think I was making $2,000 a month. 1,900, 2,000 a month, something like that.
You're doing well, Stevens.
They overpaid.
I figured you'd be probably doing about like 1,650, 1,700. Good job, Stevens. Your agent, which is probably you, did a good job negotiating that deal. Yes.
The negotiation was sure. I'll take it.
Yes.
So for me, and I'll contextualize this by going back. My first year in indie ball, I made $600 a month, $255.10 first paycheck. Second year was $850. Third year, $1,000. First year in the Atlantic League was $1,450. Second year was $1,650. Last year was $1,800. I think. Is that right? Yeah.
So for people who don't know, and this is probably better for you guys to explain, what comes out of those checks?
Peanut butter and jelly.
So clubhouse dues are what was it? $7 a day?
Yes, $6 or $7 a day, depending on where you were at. So for anyone that doesn't know, clubhouse dues, they do your laundry after the games. The clubhouse attendant does your laundry, hangs up your laundry. You get
which is a really strange system. It's like, why does the club not pay for your laundry? It's a really bizarre thing. Mike, what do you know about all that? Like, why is it that way? It's so weird.
Just one of those kind of antiquated traditions that has just kind of always been a thing. You guys have to take care of housing on your own sometimes. Some guys do host family, some guys do hotel. Guys are, sharing 4 or 6 at a time in an apartment or a couple rooms in a house or something like that. There's a lot of things that come out of it. So you always have to tip the clubhouse dues, obviously. The amount that you guys actually take home would be very interesting compared to what the actual negotiated amount is.
Yeah, I would say you have to go into the season with a little nest egg of money put away just to make it through. Like you said, if you're lucky enough to have a host family, great, that costs you nothing. But most guys aren't. Most guys have to live in some tight quarters. When I was in Camden, they didn't even have apartment options for us. They said, this is the rate of the hotel. It's a little bit of a reduced rate. I think it was like $60 a night. which if you're staying at, if you're going by a minor league season, you spend half the month on the road, half the month at home. So 15 days times $60, you're looking at $900 to stay in a hotel. Usually you get a roommate, you guys split the room, but you're talking about a good amount of money just to check in, check out. I mean, living out a suitcase is not it's not exaggeration. That's literally what you're doing. You check in when you get home from a road trip, you check out the morning of, and bar money. Everybody needs the money to go buy your Malort. So,
Mike, how do you feel about Malort?
Oh, I'm not sure what the swearing capabilities are in this podcast, but I think that should be your answer. So,
it's this show is, don't be offensive, but if you want to say damn, you can say damn. I think use what you need to use, but we try to keep it family friendly-ish. Kids have heard a curse word or two in their life.
It's damn awful.
It's damn awful. So, yeah.
I have enjoyed it with Stevens in person.
Yes, you're welcome, Dan.
I think we all have. It's a miserable liqueur. Miserable.
Shout out to our sponsor, Jepson's Malort, unofficial sponsor of the Morning Brushback podcast. Mike, I'll send you a bottle for your appearance on the show today.
Yeah, send me a bottle of this nice breakfast drink here, and I'll be good to go. So.
Is that your favorite Mountain Dew flavor?
No.
What size bottle is that? It's like a one liter. It's kind of in between. It looks like.
This is the get up for you guys size. This is the 1.25 liter blue.
Weird. That's the first time anyone's called me blue in a while. When you're not your baseball nicknames kind of like go away. Like people, my family doesn't call me that. My friends don't really call me that. Women don't call me that. Damn.
Women should call you that.
Little shot back to the past there, living in my past again. But yeah, so a lot of that money comes out, and like you said, Mike, whether they take care of your living expenses is a big deal in indie ball. The Somerset Patriots, for as much as I wanted to stick it to them for them cutting me in spring training and all that, they do a really good job with their players.
Yeah,
I mean, they do everything first class. I mean, all that stuff as a player. You leave some of those, like I got released by the Ducks, still have nothing really but good things to say about the Ducks and the way Long Island runs their program, their team. They do a fantastic job getting fans in the stands and making it fun and getting good players. Somerset does the same thing. Somerset's coaches were always honest with me. They do a good job, but other teams like Camden was a dumpster fire because they don't do anything to help players. And so a lot of these guys in the Atlantic League the average age is probably 28 to 34 is probably the range, something like that. Something.
Maybe a little younger, yeah, a little younger probably.
So I'd say 26 to 30. But I mean, to your point, Dan, or I don't know if I should call you Blue, Dan, however we're going to
call me what. It doesn't matter. All right.
Fair enough.
Whatever you want.
If you look at the budget of a team like a Long Island and a Somerset, and you compare it to Camden, I think Camden at the time probably couldn't really do a whole hell of a lot for you guys too. So but at the same time, there's certain things, as a pro ball player that you come to expect that, maybe in retrospect, they probably should have been better prepared to take care of for you guys. But again, budget wise, they didn't have a damn thing. Well,
and they also didn't seem to try. That's the other thing. It's like, find a partnership, like do something, like give them some ad space, like go find some way to just like hook up with an apartment complex that's under, it's under occupancy, and say, hey, you have a couple apartments that maybe you're not going to rent this summer. We'll give you a bunch of ad space. We'll do this, we'll do that. And in exchange, can you have one that our guys can do month to month? And just kind of like, even that would have been great, but they had literally not a thing. Like, again, I loved my time in Camden. I loved my coaches. It was a really fun. Baseball is always what you make it of it, but there's just a massive level of incompetence there, and mostly in the front office. There's some really good people there, but I mean, you just can't look at every day and look at the way things are and think that this is being run well. And I get it. The budgetary constraints are what they are. I get that, and I don't know the ins and outs of the business, but they're just you just have to look around at why there's 214 fans here, and I don't know. Anyway, ramble about that, but you're right. The minor league conditions are people don't get it. I think they get it more than they used to, and I think there's been a lot of outrage, and there's been a lot of attention drawn to it, rightly so. I personally still don't look back on the low wages and like feel any sort of way about it. I think it was fine. I made do. Everyone's in a different position, but this idea that like so many players can't keep playing because of the salaries, I don't know if that's really the case. And I also don't know that it's the case. And I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Mike. I was reading some Twitter thread recently about, yeah, if you gave all these players $4,000 a month in the minor leagues, like you'd be getting so many more big leaguers, and the investment would pay off by just getting one guy. I don't think that's the case. I think Mike Trout becomes Mike Trout, whether he's underpaid or overpaid in the minor leagues. I think guys who aren't going to make it no matter what. I don't think there's really a tremendous amount of flux where someone's going to now make it because they get an extra $3,000 a month. Where do you fall on that, Mike?
For the most part, I agree with you. I'm also, I don't know that I can speak for like the Dominican kid or the Puerto Rican kid who's really coming from nothing and maybe has no choice but to give up, earlier than maybe someone who's comes from a more privileged background. So I don't know about that, but at the same time, like obviously I feel like most people agree minor league baseball players should be paid a lot more and a lot better, but y'all know what you kind of signed up for too. So it's kind of hard to complain about that while y'all are in the moment. But like you said, Dan, I don't really think, a couple grand is going to make a difference for most people in terms of whether they're going to become, who they end up becoming or not.
Yeah, because the X factor seems, and I'm sure, Bobby, you see this with youth players. You have kids that come and do lessons, and they do their lesson, they listen, and they're great. They go home, but they don't really practice. And then you have kids that come in for lessons who they come in, they listen, they go home, and they practice their faces off. And they don't need their hands to be held 100% of the time. I have kids that will come in and will say, hey, what should I do for this, Dan? And then I have other kids that would come in and say, hey, Dan, so I was researching different things, to do for my arm at home and different stretches. What do you think about these ones that I found? Like, that's a very different person. It's a very different attitude towards life. And when I hear people complain about money, and like, I don't make as much money as I want to. Money's not like a big important thing in my life, but I don't make as much money as I want to. But I also don't complain about things I can't afford or couldn't do or whatever. I think if I want more money, I should find a way to earn more money. And I think it kind of goes back to the same thing. Like, there was a good report, and I was happy to see it a while back, of a minor leaguer who was like, all right, well, we're clearly not getting paid, so I'm getting a job. He was like either driving around delivering food with DoorDash, or it was like Instacart or something like that. Right. It's like, how many of those guys that are like some of the first ones to point out on Twitter how much they get screwed by this, how much are they hustling in the off season, or like, but they kind of feel like, oh, we shouldn't have to hustle. Well, like, big deal. Everyone has to hustle. I mean, that's kind of where I fall in that sometimes. Like, there's more gig work than ever. And I don't think there's a lot of minor leaguers complaining about salaries, but when they do speak up and whine about it, I just also wonder how much you're doing. Like you say, you can't feed your family. There's a lot of people out there who work 3 jobs. I mean, you hear it all the time, especially like there's so many hardworking immigrants in our country who work all these different jobs to make ends meet for their families. Do these minor leaguers who speak up about the conditions, do they have that same mentality in the off season? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't.
Be careful what you wish for, right? Be careful what you wish for. Like, if you want to get paid more in the minor leagues, it's going to be treated just like the big leagues. You get called up, you struggle for a week. Guess what? You go right back down. You make it. You're in the minor leagues. You're in A ball, and you struggle for 2 weeks, and you're getting paid, triple. You're getting paid $5,000-6,000 a month. Well, guess what? You don't have a job in professional baseball anymore. I mean, more money is great, and everybody wants to talk about it. And yeah, in a perfect world, you get paid accordingly, or what you feel like is a good living wage. But at the end of the day, this is, the business is going to dictate whether or not you have a job. So if you're struggling, and we've all struggled, in any aspect, baseball, Dan, you and I, Mike, maybe trying to find a story, something like that. You struggle for 2 weeks, you go, you're 2 for your last 20. That might be it. If you're making too much money, you're under a bigger microscope in that sense. I don't think anybody's really talking about that specifically. indie ball is a good example. Like if Mike, you said nobody's making $3,000. Well, if you got a guy in Somerset making $2,600 and for 3 weeks straight, he can't find the plate, on the mound, that guy's gone. And
Sure.
I don't think, and that's just 26, let's, even if he's making the max at $3,000. So I want to stay on transition a little bit, or move to the next topic.
You want to stay on a transition?
I want to stay on indie ball for a second.
I got one more question for Mike. So Mike,
Yeah.
you said like you're a writer and you're out of work, but it sounds like you quickly were like, I'm getting a job. I mean, tell me about that process, because that doesn't seem like the common thing to do either. I think a lot of people are just kind of at home waiting for their old position to come back, but you seem to like you just jumped on something new.
I didn't want to. My wife and I just bought a house at like the worst possible time, and the mortgage doesn't pay itself. I could stay at home and probably end up making more money than I am now, but I could have filed for unemployment. I just didn't really want to do that, so I kind of wanted to find something that I would actually not like want to do, but be okay with doing. And it's very humbling going from covering the Super Bowl to being bitched at for how many groceries are in the bag you just packed. But it is what it is. I mean, I need to, make money like everybody else does, like you guys were saying too, and kind of grind and until this, whatever is going on is done. And it is what it is. So until things are back to normal, I'll be filling online orders at your local Whole Foods.
So staying on that, are you hearing anything about going back to normal for Atlantic League or, independent baseball in general?
I think as a whole, indie ball has a better chance of getting some form of a season in than the minors do collectively. Most people seem to have a consensus that the minors are not going to be a thing this year, which I agree with. I think you might see some sort of extended instructs or fall league kind of stuff, but the minors in home ballparks, as we know it this season, I don't think is going to happen. Indie ball, I have not heard anything concrete. Atlantic League, I have not heard anything concrete. I keep sticking with like this July 1st drop dead date, where if there's not a plan for something to come back or something hasn't come back by then, I don't think it's going to. But the thing people need to realize the most is, they can just come back with no fans. No, they can't. MLB can do that. Minors cannot do that. Indie ball cannot do that. The majority of the revenue comes from fans. You cannot open that ballpark with nobody there. It would be just an absolute waste of everybody's time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I know they're talking about American Association here. They still have like the July 4th weekend is everything that I'm being told is like that's still on pace, but at some point, like it's getting close. You guys got to get in there. Indie ball spring training, for anyone that doesn't know, is 10 days to 2 weeks at most. Yep. So there's a little more leeway. Like I don't want to say they risk health more in indie ball, but you're expected to show up a little more prepared than you would be for a minor league, like an affiliated spring training. They kind of ease you back.
That's not happening this year. I mean, most guys are staying in shape. There's guys who haven't done a damn thing. So, I mean, indie ball spring training being 2 weeks, if there is a season, is going to be really funky looking.
It's going to be a quick ramp up. There's going to be, I think like what I said a little while ago is those guys, if they don't perform right off the bat, like there are how many hundreds of players looking for work in these for only a handful of maybe independent teams that are going to play. So I think you're going to have an influx of talent of really good high level players that need jobs, and you're not going to be afforded the luxury of easing into a season. Like you're going to have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I wasn't as freaked out by the mass releases yesterday. I guess it was yesterday, as most people were, just because I feel like that's what would have happened at the end of a regular spring training anyway. The optics of doing that during a pandemic are not good.
Yeah, it's funny that's a small, like the Marlins are one of the teams, the smaller, like less, quote unquote, small revenue teams are the ones covering the expenses for their employees and their minor leaguers. And then you got certain teams that make more money or in bigger markets that are just, there you go. Like business as usual.
Bobby, transition us, bro. Let's go.
I don't even know what we're going to talk about. Mike, I wanted to ask you, so you've covered Super Bowls, you've covered all-star games, all that stuff. What has been your favorite experience sporting event-wise?
There are two. Game 7 of the World Series in 2016 and Super Bowl 51.
What made the Game 7 so? I know Cubs, Indians. That was in Cleveland, I believe.
Yep.
What made that so special, other than obviously very good game?
It was my first Game 7 of a World Series. I think it was the fourth World Series I'd done. And just, the history that was at stake there with two teams that had not, won it in forever, basically. The atmosphere was incredible. Game was incredible. It was everything you could have possibly wanted it to be. If someone, ever asked you, hey, did you get to cover a Game 7 of the World Series? I can say I covered that one. It was actually a good, memorable one that people actually care about. Super Bowl 51. First Super Bowl, my first Super Bowl, and also the first Super Bowl that ever went to overtime. It was the 28-3 Falcons leading, and then the Tom Brady Patriots comeback. So that's another one that people will, talk about for seemingly forever. So I got very fortunate to be able to be at a point in my career where I could kind of do games like that at that time.
What are the ins and outs of going to a Game 7, a Super Bowl? Like, how much does that cost your newspaper to get you out there? Like, what's that? Take us through that whole thing, because I think that's fascinating. That little secret world that you reporters get to. That's a cool thing for sure.
So 2016 remains the only World Series where I did every game. Usually I'll just kind of pick a city and just stay there. And if I get to see the trophy, great. If I don't, great. It kind of is what it is. But it's, the expenses are pretty significant with that in terms of sending me wherever it is, hotels, any expenses, reasonable expenses, not drinking Malort expenses that I may,
Ooh la la.
yes, I may incur while I'm out. So there's that. Super Bowl is actually kind of a little more difficult to do because the way the NFL does it, it really doesn't make sense to not be there for the whole week. So you're pretty much wherever the Super Bowl is for a week. Super Bowl 53, I had a hotel in Atlanta for about a week, and it was one of like the NFL hotels where like they would shuttle you around to the stadium and all the media availabilities and stuff. And for I think it was like 5 or 6 days, it was maybe somewhere around like $1,700-$1,800. It's a nice hotel. It's like a Marriott, decent-ish Marriott, but like it's the prices for stuff that week are insane. So you're racking up a lot of cash, and there's a lot of, as you were kind of talking about with player salaries, there's a lot of pressure on you to not screw up with the amount of money that's getting, put into you and kind of the opportunity that you're being given.
Yeah,
so
you
what's
normally
the expectation? I beat you there, Bobby.
Man.
What's the expectation? Do you have to write a story a night? Do you feel like you have to write something different than what's your angle? Like why do they have Mike Ashmore on the story rather than someone else? I mean, you're not just recapping the game, just like, oh, Johnny hit a double in the fifth. Like what's your angle there?
For Super Bowl week, usually I'm trying to find something local-ish. Like this year, I did a couple Rutgers-related stories. I did a story on Jordan Matthews, who played for the Eagles, which is kind of related-ish to where our paper is based in Trenton, New Jersey. It's about 30, 45 minutes out of there. Just trying to find something. There's stuff I kind of stick to every year. When I do the Stanley Cup Final, there's stories I kind of stick to where you kind of trying to do something that's different than what everybody else is doing and kind of hope that you land on something. Like I'll do Super Bowl, I will do a backup quarterback story every year just in case one of them goes down and we have something we can use right away. And there's always kind of a fascinating story with backups too. I do the backup goalie story every year in the Stanley Cup Final, same premise. So there's a lot of kind of different things you try to do and play with, and most of it doesn't work, but when it does, it's really beneficial.
Yeah, you stole my thunder there, Mike. I was going to say you normally do a story on the backup. I remember the goalies. I don't remember the quarterback backup stories, but I remember there's always you got the backup goalie, and this guy is like super thrilled to be interviewed because he never gets interviewed. He's like the one guy who nobody talks to in the locker room, I feel like, for hockey.
Yeah. I mean, like media day, the backup goalie is typically either left alone or only asked to talk about the starter. So usually you get some pretty good stuff there. And I think that story is I've done 8 Stanley Cup Finals, and I think twice, the starter has gone down and it's kind of worked out for us. So just one of those things where it's something that most people aren't doing coverage wise. So it's just one of those things where you're trying to stand out and, make yourself do something different and hope it works. Most times it doesn't, but when it does, like I said, it really helps.
Do you have a special broadcaster voice when you're interviewing people? Like, hi, I'm Mike Ashmore. What did you say that you're gonna do if you get in this ball match later?
No, so my voice tends to change based on who I'm around, which is really stupid. Like when I'm around Brett Jody a lot, like I'll kind of do some y'alls and hex and shucks and all that stuff.
Tarnation, that was a hard hit ball. Man,
Yeah,
God willing that sneak through the hole, but some days it just don't, It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Never heard the man swear once. I've known him 18 years. So, and then when I'm around
Really?
hockey, there's a lot more like and like, kind of this more Canadianisms and stuff like that. So, but I don't have like a voice I go to do interviews. You guys have had to deal with my BS for long enough. I don't really change my voice for anything. So,
who's your favorite interview? How many years you been doing this now?
this is 18.
18.
I started when I was 20.
We don't need to call out your age, Mike. You look youthful.
You've been doing this longer than a farmer on a, I don't know where I'm going with that. So do you feel like over the years you just got, how quickly can you bang out a story? If you're like, your editor calls you like, hey, what can you get me in an hour start to finish? Can you make that deadline? Like how much time do you typically need to churn out something that you could you want to put your name on?
10 minutes. I think the best probably examples of that are when, even this year, like when I'm on deadline for the Super Bowl is really, really hard because I had a story ready to go about the 49ers winning. Had it ready, had it set, and then Mahomes does what he does and had to just change that around. So there's game, I think 6 of the Stanley Cup final in 2013. Chicago scored 2 goals, and Stevens, you should know this, they scored 2 goals in like 30 seconds or something like that. It looked like it was going to go to a game 7. And then I had maybe 5 minutes to send in a story that made some sort of sense and wasn't in Japanese about how that all happened. So those are kind of the moments where you kind of feel that pressure and you're not even really thinking, you're just kind of doing and hoping that it looks okay.
It's awesome. So Dan skipped my question totally. Who's been your favorite interview of all the guys you've gotten to talk to over the years?
We talking like in terms of like names or in terms of like conversation or?
I'm in terms of entertainment for you.
Oh man.
Who's the most entertaining interview? Like somebody that you think back you'd want to interview again?
Man, that's interesting. Geez, because there's just so many to. Sparky Lyle's such a. I don't know. I feel like that's such a cop out by me because I've known the guy for so long, but you just never know what he's going to say. And I know you guys have been around him a decent amount as well. That's always an interesting one for me where I've known the guy for so long and I still hear him tell stories that I've never, heard him tell before. That's always a fun one. Name wise, I feel like I've been very fortunate to kind of talk to, I want to say most of like the relevant kind of sports figures today, but Tom Brady's always one I kind of get fired up for. I've done that one a couple of times. Bill Belichick always makes me want to crap my pants. You have to be so focused on what you're doing and try not to ask a stupid question, which obviously you want to be doing anyway, but that, you might be the subject of some sort of viral clip if he bites your head off. So you don't want to do that. Shoot, man. Ovechkin's always cool. Crosby's always cool. There's still ones you get fired up for, but for the most part, it's just, it's really no different than doing what I do in the Atlantic League. They're all just people,
So I'm going to now flip that. Who's the worst interview you've had in your 18 years?
Oh man.
You could say me if it is.
No, both you guys were always good. I still remember Blewett being pissed off. I went up to him the first time, but that's probably a different story for a different day. So
Why was I don't remember this. Why was I pissed off?
I don't know. You weren't having a good day, or like you were like wondering like why I was even like, yeah, because I think you showed up like the year before or something like that to like try out at the end of the year. So there's some sort of scenario where where we came across each other for the first time and you just did not want much to do with it. So
I don't remember that, but interesting.
It's all right.
So Dan's not the worst, but who's
somebody? Did I refuse you, or did I still give you what you needed?
No, you wondered why I was going up to you in the first place.
Oh, probably just because I was a nobody. So I don't know. I mean, I've always been a try to do something first kind of person, and I don't know. That's probably my reasoning. Like I haven't done anything. Like why? What do you want with me?
Yeah. We got the root of Dan's.
I always appreciated it. I always appreciated it.
Worst, man.
Or someone you would prefer just to not interview again. You know, he's not a bad person, but somebody you just don't want to interview ever again.
Jeez. I've had a few hockey ones that haven't really gone too great. Evgeny Nabokov was always kind of a prick.
Nice.
Ray Emery, rest in peace, was not the greatest to deal with. Shoot. Sergei Bobrovsky on the list as well. What you got?
If you could interview a fictional cereal box character, who do you think would be the best interview?
Oh man. I have to
Tony the Tiger, the Lucky Charms guy, one of the ghosts from like Boo Berry, or
I would say probably Captain Crunch, no?
Yes, the only correct answer is the captain.
He's well traveled. He's probably, been to all the oceans.
It's like the Jack Sparrow of cereals.
Logged a lot of sea miles as the captain, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back
in the day before we fortified the cereal, too many men died of scurvy out on the seas before the captain. Yes. Yeah.
If you could take a slap shot at somebody with no gear on, who would it be?
Oh boy. All the answers that come to mind will get me in trouble.
Dan's is Trevor Bauer.
Man, I don't know. I don't really. I feel like if I say Trump, that's going to cause a lot of issues. So I don't want to do that.
No, it won't. You could say that.
Especially right now, that's probably the answer. So
he's a really compassionate person.
I'm waiting for Secret Service to pull up to my freaking door 2 seconds from now. So
Dan, you got a new address. You're safe now. You just moved.
I heard he was a great hockey player.
As long as Don knows where to send my stimulus check, we're all good. So
I tell you what, he might be a good goalie. He's big guy, 6'3", with those pads on.
And obese. So
yeah, he's covering a lot of the net. You don't have a good. You got to have a very good shot of hitting him, but maybe not a good shot of scoring a goal on him.
Well, you guys, it was way past, way before your time in Somerset when he landed his helicopter on the field before a game to throw out a first pitch. So
I forgot about that. He's good friends with the owner, isn't he? Or he's got
he's
to the owner.
Good friends with the Califers. He did that once where he landed his helicopter on the field before a game, and then he was one of the dignitaries back when he was just a reality show bozo at the I think it was the 2008 Atlantic League All-Star game.
It's funny that the owner of a somewhat obscure independent baseball team has that good of a relationship with just now the president, but even then somebody who's high profile New York City celebrity. Yeah,
Califer family, as you guys probably both know everybody. They're great people. They know everybody. But yeah, they even had a couple years ago, they had Trump record a Go Patriots video. I don't think that was around for your time, Stevens. I don't think they played that.
I remember seeing it. I think it was right after me, but I remember seeing again, just shows how weird a world that multi-millionaire billionaire club is.
Yep.
Just wearing headbands, just taking names, just drinking Malort. Just never know where they're going to show up. Maybe become president one day, and then just do random stuff. Mike, how do you feel about Twitter fact checking Trump? And then last night they actually flagged one of his posts as well as potentially offensive and inciting violence or whatever.
Should they not have flagged that one?
No, I think it was valid.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very slippery slope to talk about political things. I try hard to kind of stay in my lane and not address that stuff too much. But if as long as it is an actual genuine fact check, then I mean that's what I don't see what the issue is there with them wanting to do that.
So I pulled up the tweet. I have mixed feelings about this tweet specifically because he says these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd. So everything that's going on, George Floyd is the African-American civilian from Minneapolis that ended up dying from police brutality. He says these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to the governor and told him military's with him all the way. Any difficulty, and we will assume control when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you.
Do you know the origin of that last statement, though?
I don't. Do you?
So apparently it is traced back to something from the 60s. There was a very racist gentleman who originally authored that phrase. I think we kind of need to look into that before we speak about that part of it more. But apparently he kind of called back to that time to use that. Yes. I can't imagine he just pulled that out of his rear end. So
no,
wonderful.
Nothing. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm very against and Mike, you're in media. I'm very against this whole, I have to click on view to see this tweet. I'm very against the censorship of it. Not just Trump. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, I feel like if you have something to say, that's the beauty of First Amendment free speech, that you should be able to say it and be free to say it, platform, whether there's a very, I don't know, fuzzy line with social media, because is it free speech on social media, or are they allowed to govern what you say? And it's obviously they're trying, this is a step towards governing what can be seen and said by certain people.
That's a big thing on Facebook too, is where you kind of see there's that image preview thing where it's this may contain sensitive material. Do you really want to click on this? And just to kind of go back to the last point, when the looting starts, the shooting starts was from Miami Police Chief Walter Headley in 1967. If y'all want to Google that, for anybody who's listening or watching, go ahead. You guys can probably figure that out better than I can. So,
yeah. I listened to this episode of the Recode Decode podcast, and they had a couple experts of disinformation talking about the spread of fake news and these organizations that essentially just churn out either fake content or content that's semi-real that pushes an agenda or whatever it is. There's these households all over the world that are doing this now, and they monitor it. And it was really interesting just hearing some of these things that they do and the way they push their agenda. And a lot of it's just troubling. But yeah, I mean,
I did listen to that when you sent it to us. I listened to the first half of it.
Yeah, and then you tuned out. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I disagree with, and I'll summarize, I think everything should be questioned, right? Everything that is reported on you should have some questions about it. I don't think you should take anything as fact, whether it comes from Fox, CNN, whatever. So the social media, all of the stuff on Twitter and Facebook, you choose to consume that. So I don't know. I don't want somebody telling me that, warning me oh, Donald Trump said something that might be somewhat offensive. Okay, I'm following him. I'm following him for a reason, or I'm following somebody else for a reason. Black Lives Matters, something. I'm following these people for a reason. I want to see what they say. I don't want you putting to the front of the line what you think I want to see, or what you think that I want to read about. I want to see, there's an option to block. I want to see what I want to see. And I just, I'm very pro, there's going to be a lot of things that are said that I don't agree with, but if I want to be informed on both sides, I should have the ability to see it without it being censored or taken off a platform.
The problem is there's a difference between sources. And let me give you an example that doesn't exactly exist, but it could. Say there's a terrorist group and they want people to inject themselves with bleach so that they die. And they want to inject it. They want them to, and so they create all these websites that look like the same font as New York Times and whatever. And this is what a lot of these organizations do. And they make this massive campaign to get all these articles out there by all these different sources, make them look official, get them retweeted, get them lots and lots of reads saying, this is a real thing that you need to go home and take a syringe full of bleach and inject your children with it. could kill a lot of people. And there's a lot of dumb people that would say, oh, wow, that I need to do that immediately because that prevents, and this is like a hop, skip, and a jump from the stupid things, Trump was saying. But say that was what they were saying. That's not what he said, but say that was a thing. Or like, hey, if you take this cocktail of household products and drink them, this is going to help prevent this thing. And so they make this massive campaign and it kills 30,000 people. You don't think there should be any sort of protection from something like that happening? Like someone should be checking that stuff?
So
like
that's an extreme.
It can potentially be weaponized.
Example,
but it's not that extreme.
So that's a very extreme.
But you have to go to both sides of the continuum to figure out where should there ever be a line? But and then you say, okay, well, where is the line? Then you back off a little bit. Where is the line?
But there is Mike, right now the line is okay. Mike,
I feel like there is a difference between things that you see on social media that are different than what your viewpoint is versus something that is meant to be intentionally deceiving. So to Steven's point, I don't really necessarily agree with a lot of things being censored, especially if it is just because it's of a viewpoint that's different than yours. But in terms of something that's intentionally deceiving, and I think to somewhat agree with Trump of all freaking things, actual legitimate fake news, I think there's, a good reason to try to get rid of a lot of that in terms of, again, things that are trying to intentionally deceive people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the side of like, I don't necessarily agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it.
Right.
I don't think that, like, yes, if someone's saying like, hey, go play Russian roulette and take a video of it, like, yeah, that's borderline criminal. But I'll use a less tame example of if you believe that the earth is flat and you want to run a thread on Twitter saying that earth is flat, like, you should have the right to do that.
You have the right to be stupid. You have the right to be an idiot.
Okay, but
and believe something that's very dumb and disproven, for sure.
But okay, is it disproven though? Like, there's a lot of people that think the earth is flat.
It's for sure disproven. We've been to space. It's for sure disproven.
That's a have we been to space? We don't know that.
Mike, where do you fall on the earth being flat?
Man, this is not the conversation I was expecting to have today, boys.
Mike, we don't talk sports on this podcast. We talk crazy shit.
But just saying, is it though, doesn't make it not true. Like, the earth is for sure.
But my point is, that's
round.
fine.
It's like for sure.
Okay,
round.
it's a globe, but but if you believe that it's flat, if you believe that it's flat, you can say that.
Like
out
I said,
loud.
you can say dumb stuff. That's fine. But like, don't just say just from me to you, Bobby. You don't need to say, but is it? When no, the earth is for sure round. The earth is for sure.
All
round.
right. So let's take a different example.
Mike, where is the earth round or is it flat? What do you got?
I have no reason to believe the earth is flat.
Fair enough. So how about
so to
like
the point,
the Kennedy
though,
assassination? Like, there's a lot of stuff. Like, the Kennedy assassination has been 60 years removed. That, some people think it was the guy on the grassy knoll. Some people think it was an inside job. Are you not allowed to?
It could have been Tony the Tiger. We don't
know. It could have been Captain Crunch.
We don't know.
Honestly.
We don't know. Was it?
But you don't know. That's a.
But we don't know. See, I'm doing the same. I'm doing the same.
It's a valid question.
But to the original point, though, like if Stevens feels like it was Captain Crunch, like, I don't feel like his opinions on social media should be censored in any way. If he wants to say it was Captain Crunch, okay, cool. Say it was Captain Crunch, man. Like,
that's fine.
I don't feel like he's saying that to intentionally be deceiving or anything. I feel like that's his opinion and that's what he believes. There's a difference between your beliefs and a difference between just spreading BS.
That is what I believe, that Captain Crunch killed Kennedy.
I'm glad we established that.
And that was part of this podcast, which again is called Recode Decode, and it was the most recent one. But they were talking about there's a difference between misinformation, which is Captain Crunch, killed JFK, or disinformation, which is, well, I guess probably the same thing. Like, when you're just fabricating something, like, again, like, hey, go home and drink as much bleach as you can because it cures leukemia. That's disinformation. Like, you made that up. With
the issue is who's deciding this.
Don't do that, by the way. That was not a real thing that exists or should be done.
Who's deciding what information you see and don't see? First of all, is unknown. Like, Jack comes out and takes responsibility for it, but
Yeah, Jack's like a jellyfish. He's about as spineless as they come, it seems like.
But so who's making that decision? Is it the government that has that power? Is it these companies that have that power? Like, I would prefer, if in a perfect world, that it would be somewhat to the Wild West. Like on Twitter, you can say whatever you want and you have the ability to not see all of that information. You have the ability to block it, as opposed to Twitter deciding what I do and do not see, because that is, I feel, much more dangerous than the former.
What do you think, Mike?
I don't know. I mean, it's their platform. I mean, I don't see like it being any different. I don't see it being too much different than, say, you guys being with the Camden River Sharks and saying, like, I don't know, so something that's controversial or silly or whatever. I mean, they have the right to do whatever they want with you after that. You have the right to say it, but they have the right to do what they want with you after that too.
I agree with that. And I that brings up another good point, is Twitter like a free market platform? Is it like the town square of the old days where you go there and you talk about whatever you want to talk about? Or is it a privatized like platform company where they decide what is allowed on their platform? I mean, it's
like you can't put a sign on my front lawn. Like,
right.
Twitter owns their platform.
But I don't think that line isn't, I don't think there's a distinction right there, because Twitter is kind of like the town square. So is Twitter a privatized company? Like, if it is, then I'm all for them being able to put whatever they want on their platform. If they want to take people off of it, they can take people off of it.
Well, you sign a user agreement. I mean, you sign an agreement of the terms of service and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
If you don't agree to it, you can not be on Twitter, and that's okay.
Right. But then are they advertising themselves as like a beacon of free speech and news? Because I think they are.
Are they, Mike? Are they the beacon of Twitter, the beacon of free speech and news on the interwebs? Are you a troll? Come to Twitter.
It feels that way, but obviously it isn't that way with what we were talking about with it's, like you said, signing the agreement and them kind of being their own private entity. I mean, it feels like they mostly don't, but they have the right to display or not display whatever they want.
Yeah. I think, Mike, have you seen the movie Minority Report?
Not in a very long time.
But you remember what the precogs are?
Like vaguely, man. It's been a while.
So, well, the book was a lot better. But anyway, so like in Minority Report, they have these three like mutants essentially that have these crazy brains that can predict the future. That's just what we need for all these platforms. We just have like a group of mutants that they sift through all this stuff and they determine like objectively what's fake news and what's not, what's disinformation, what's not. Then we just know, like the precogs, like if they say it's, then we're all good. We're good. Uncorruptible system. Just having a tank full of mutants deciding. I think that's the way to go. Bobby, how do you feel about this?
I mean, anything with mutants that causes anarchy, I'm down for.
Or maybe like take some animals and like give them superpowers. Like elephants are really smart, or dolphins, and like just really get them to the point where they're way smarter than us, and then let them decide.
Stevens, when you sent me the show outline, Twitter mutants did not come up.
and all-knowing dolphins didn't come up.
Captain Crunch was not on there. Disappointed.
Was not on there.
Did you really expect my my journalistic outline to stick for this podcast?
No.
So thank you, Tom. We got a message on Twitter, just the origin of the, like you said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, a racist white Miami police chief. So that's targeted African Americans. So yeah, wonderful illusion. Mike,
I just want to jump in real quick. Zach Clark on Periscope says you work like an animal.
Yes, I came across Zach at the Future Stars series. I guess he's a scout with the Rays now. Covered him in Somerset and a little bit elsewhere in the Atlantic League. And he saw me rolling around in the dirt and shooting videos of 17-year-old kids running sprints. So, yeah.
Mike, how do you view the so that was your first kind of foray into like the amateur kind of baseball world. How did you like the Future Star series? Like what do you got on that?
So I started.
It seems like they do a good job.
Yeah, no, Jeremy Booth and everybody over there, and Brian Norris and Renee Booth, and everybody over there does a great job. New Balance does a great job. Let me just check off all my list of people whose rear ends I need to kiss. I'm kidding.
New Balance, good shoes. Man, their company had such a turnaround. Like, was it 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago from just being those dorky white dad shoes that I'm sure a lot of you are wearing as you're listening. By the way, if you're out there wearing those dorky white sneakers, send me an email. I'll help you. I'll send you a link of some shoes you should buy. Okay, go ahead.
So I covered Jeremy as a player with Somerset. He was there kind of briefly, and then a little bit later on in Sussex, I covered him there as well. And we always kind of kept in touch. And he asked me if I could help him out with this new venture that he was doing. And I don't even think he knows this, but at the time, I didn't really want to do it. I didn't have the right attitude about it. I felt like I was kind of above it. And then I actually started doing it and I loved it. It's a totally different side of the game. You get to be around all these kids, which is a lot of fun, and kind of see like a different passion for the game than kind of what I'm used to seeing in other places, and get to meet all these great people who have had all these great different experiences that I hadn't really been exposed to. And it kind of brings me back to the prospect side of stuff too. My background kind of, I was really full-time in Trenton in AA from 08 to like mid 13. And the thing I miss the most about that is getting to kind of see these prospects coming up and kind of getting to form my own opinions on, what I thought they would be going forward. So obviously it's at a much earlier stage in development, but to get to kind of do that really brings me back to a lot of stuff I liked about covering affiliated ball too. So it's been a great experience, and I really can't thank Jeremy enough for bringing me on. It's been great.
You really hit, like you said, you really checked all the boxes there. It was great.
Good corporate answer.
Jeremy, wherever you are, keep it going, man. Mike Ashmore's had a great time. No, but that's cool. I mean, I've seen their stuff. I don't know that much about it, but it seems like they run a pretty like high class organization. Yeah, it seems cool.
Yeah, got to do their big event at Fenway Park last year, which is really cool. So yeah, a lot of big things going forward too. I know they kind of moved a lot of things to Louisiana, and that seems to have worked out with them kind of loosening a lot of their restrictions with the pandemic and all that stuff going on. So I'm kind of hoping to kind of make my first events back as a sports writer, getting out of semi-retirement, kind of doing that at the end of June as of right now. So we'll see.
Mike, how do you see, as we slowly start to wrap up here, how do you see the journalism industry changing? I mean, there's going to be newspapers that don't come out of this. We hope that yours do. But how do you see the future? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh man, it was a dying industry when I got into it. It's a dying industry now. Just a matter of what the degree of free fall is going forward. Obviously, none of this is going to help. I hope I have jobs to come back to when this is all over. I don't know. We will all find out together, I suppose. But even when I first started, like some kids like look up to me for whatever reason, who knows why, and they'd ask me for advice on how to get into this and all that stuff. My first thing I always say is have a backup plan, because this is A, it's not for everybody, and B, there's so few jobs and the pay is what it is, and there's a whole separate conversation on that, I'm sure, but it's a very, very difficult thing to get into, and you really, especially now, really, really have to love it if you want to do it. It's such a dying thing these days, which is kind of sad. To actual real journalism, especially I'm more or less the only guy really covering the Atlantic League anymore. And it wasn't really that way when I got in there. Almost every team had daily print coverage, and it's really not. Even our paper doesn't have daily print coverage anymore. It's like once or twice a week. So just to see what it was when I got in and what it's kind of become now is mostly sad. But there's, for the places that are still doing good journalism, support that, because that's where you're getting all your facts. It's where you're getting all your information. And for whatever your favorite paper is or magazine or podcast, whatever, support that. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes in. I'm sure there's a ton more work that goes into what you guys are doing with this podcast than you imagine, because I know there is with the one that I'm doing. So for people who are actually putting in work and doing good journalism, make sure you support that, especially right now with everything that's going on, so you can be informed.
Well, and it's hard. People, and this is what blogging did, starting 10, 20 years ago, is that people now expect to read everything for free. Like, writing has been devalued. Yeah. And it's sad that like real writers, it's a highly difficult skill, and churning out like good articles over and over and over, it's really, really hard. People don't appreciate it. Not to mention, I think more people are worse writers than ever. I think this is there's actually fewer people that can actually probably do the job well. Especially when you start jumping around Medium. Like Medium.com is a really interesting place. Do you have much familiarity with Medium?
A little bit, yeah.
It's such a weird. So Medium, if you're out there, is sort of like a social media platform for like blogging. So if you don't want to have your own website and you don't want to start your own blog, you can go on Medium, make an account, and they have this like really nice editor. It's just like a clean. It looks very professional, like just like a New York Times article. And you can make an account and write your first article a day, and it's on Medium. And when you go to Medium.com or their app, they just have it's a newspaper sort of layout, just like anything else, of just people that just write stuff for free. And there's like little clubs within it, sort of like you could be part of like a tech group and write articles within that group. It's kind of like that. But when you read Medium, you feel like you're reading a real publication. But then when you read some of these articles, you're like, that was trash. Like the 5 minutes I just spent reading that was utter garbage. It was poorly written. It was a story that didn't need to be told. It was told, like everything about it was trash. And like, oh yeah, that's because anyone can write here. And most people aren't actually that good at writing. And it's good that people are writing more, but it's a skill. And I'm bashing other people to like, I'm just backhandedly praise you, but like it's sad that people devalue real writers, because it's a hard thing to be really good at, to get to the point, to lead them down that journey, to tell a story in a compelling way. And most people can't do it. And yet we still expect to get all of our reading and for free. And it's sad. Like people don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. Anyone can do what I do, but when it's what you do, you should notice a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely get what you pay for. I mean, in Chicago, we've got Sun-Times, Tribune, both daily newspapers. You pay $1.50, you're going to get prominent writer who's well known, who's also writes well. Like he's got good flow to his columns. And then you log on to the local Cubs Nation blog and you read something somebody wrote, and sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's, what the hell did I just read?
Yeah.
So it's you definitely get what you pay for. And I think like medium.com is a good name, because the medium of journalism, I feel like, has changed a ton. Like Mike, you got into podcasting. I want to just touch on your podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
The No Name, is it the No Name podcast? Did I get that correct? Or
the Untitled Mike Ashmore
Untitled
podcast? Yes, because both of the names I actually wanted to use, I couldn't. So
podcasting has become like a new law, journalism essentially. The Joe Rogan podcast has been in the news recently, and there's everybody, especially now, you can do podcasts remotely. You can get stories remotely.
Mike, I know you got this new job, to make ends meet, which I think is admirable. But did you think about just selling your podcast for $100 million?
I should have done that.
I know. What are you, stupid?
Yeah. I should have gone full Joe. You guys want to see my podcast setup? Here it is. When I'm doing phoners, it's this. I hold my recorder up to my phone. I don't have a fancy boom mic and all that stuff like you guys have. It's literally this. I do this for an hour at a time. I just hold this up. That's all I do.
That sounds so miserable. Why do you do that to yourself?
That's how I've always done phoners. Like when when guys sign in the off season, like, hey man, how's it going? Here's 5 minutes about how optimistic you are about it. I write that story 30 times a year. Player X,
right.
X major leaguer, player X excited about opportunity with team Y. I've done that story 10,000 times. And that's how I always do phoners, is I'll hold my recorder up to my phone, and that's how I do a podcast, man. So it is what it is.
It's the old school. You're the old school, Mike.
Yes.
And I'd like to point out that Joe Rogan followed the Morning Brushback to Spotify with no recognition of us whatsoever when he signed his deal. I mean, how many guys
he followed? What are you saying?
We've been on Spotify a lot. We've been on Spotify. Like how many?
So is he.
No.
Yeah, his show's on Spotify.
Dan, fact check this, Mike. Can we get a shout out from Joe Rogan? Like we're blazing a trail for this guy for $100 million contracts. We can't even get a shout out on his podcast. It's getting ridiculous, Joe.
I've interviewed Joe Rogan in the past. I should have brought that up and maybe tell him in the future, like, hey, when you're going to the Spotify thing, you guys gotta bring the Morning Brushback along with you too.
He's really, he forgets who brought him along, who helped him along the way, and it's unappreciated, Joe.
That was all. That we're gonna edit that segment out. That was utter nonsense.
I'm gonna clip that and tag him.
So Mike, how many episodes deep are you? What is your show about?
It's basically a 1 hour excuse to do a long form interview, asking questions to guys I never had the balls to ask when I actually covered them. That's the best synopsis I can give. Um, I'm trying to think of an example where, so Mike Antonini, for example, I don't think he was around in the Atlantic League when you guys were. Maybe he was,
No,
but
he was. Yeah, I played
okay.
against him.
Antonini, great guy. Got called up to the big leagues twice by the Dodgers, but didn't get to pitch either time. He's called known as a phantom player, I guess, where he was on a big league roster but didn't get to play. And I've known Mike a long time. I did a story similar to that with Kyler Newby, who was great about it, but I never had the balls to ask Antonini about it. And it wasn't that I thought he was a bad guy or he was going to like chew my head off or anything. I just never did it. So something like this was kind of a excuse of sorts to kind of dig into that a little bit more and finally get to get the real story on that. So it's kind of stuff like that. It's more just long form interviews in terms of just really digging into guys' careers step by step and almost like a career retrospective thing. So it's been fun. It's been fun. I kind of hate that I have to do it because it means that I have the time to do it, which means I'm not actually covering games right now, obviously, but it's something to kind of make me feel like I'm still involved in sports and keeps me sharp until I actually do physically get back. So,
yeah. Where can people find your podcast? What platform is it on?
it's on YouTube, actually. So the idea behind that was I don't think I've ever told this story before because it's kind of slimy, but I was at 970 subscribers and you can monetize your channel at 1,000. And I figured that if I did it that way, it would be a good way to produce content and kind of, keep people entertained and interacting during kind of a crappy time. But B, I could also kind of, make a couple extra bucks. You make like $12 a month on YouTube if you have remotely decent views. So just kind of a small revenue stream and an interesting way to kind of have like a video element of it too. Like if I have guys highlights, I'll play them over the podcast and something like that. So it's more kind of designed for like a YouTube premium kind of thing where you can just kind of play it in the background. But yeah, pretty much just YouTube for right now. I've had people ask me if I can put it on like regular, like, Apple or Spotify or anything like that. But as of right now, it's kind of a YouTube thing. So
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up the monetization because it does take a while to make any significant money. I have 11,000 subscribers on my two channels combined. So I have I'm nearing 7,000 on my baseball channel and I'm about 4,500 on my softball channel. And my revenue, I don't mind disclosing it right now. My revenue fluctuates depending on the time of year between $200 a month and $100 a month, depending. And that's with both channels combined. And that's just from like the ads you'll see on it. And
it's not what people think it is. Yeah.
No, if you get to 100,000 subscribers, you'll be making maybe $2,000 a month if your videos are still consistently viewed, which is not chump change. Like that can pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
In perpetuity. So it's something to definitely progress towards. That's certainly not the main reason for either of our shows, but it's like it's just something to like keep the lights on. You know what I mean? And I think that's reasonable. Have you thought of? I mean, and there's a lot of other ways. What's really interesting, and this is sort of tangent or an offshoot of what Joe Rogan's doing, but I think Spotify is demoing this. So this is also probably a reason for you to just like download your episodes, throw them into a media or an audio editor. It'll just take out the audio stream and you can just throw it on those other platforms too. But Spotify is I'm pretty sure in like beta testing of a advertising platform for podcasts where basically, Bobby has a company that sells Malort. Bobby's Malort company says, hey, we'd like to advertise on a podcast. Here is the ad that we'd like you to read. We'll pay you $35 to read it. And anyone can go in there and grab that and read on their show. I'm sure there's stipulations like you might have to have these many listens or whatever's. But I think if you basically qualify, then you can say, yeah, I'll read that. I'll read Johnny's Hippo Farm. Come to Johnny's Hippo Farm where we have the biggest hippos and whatever. And then you can just like monetize your platform that way on your podcast, which is a really interesting idea because Bobby and I will for sure sell our souls for an extra $13, a month for sure. Like we'll sell it immediately. But that's a really interesting way because there's a lot of podcasts. It's a growing platform still, even though it's very cluttered. But if you have a consistent fan base, yeah. And I mean, there's also Patreon. I mean, what else is in the Mike Ashmore pipeline?
Well, not OnlyFans. That'd be weird. Yeah, just, doing that. Just trying to stay busy, like I said, with the Future Star series thing, kind of maybe kicking around the idea of doing a podcast with some of like the draft eligible kids too. Just trying to stay busy, trying to stay relevant right now. Like, it's really like sports writing is not a great place to be right now because there's nothing to really do. So just trying to reinvent yourself and make yourself more appealing to potential future employers if things do go bad when things get back to normal. So yeah, even doing stuff like this, I mean, it gets my name out there. This gets your guys' names out there for whatever it is you guys want to do going forward. Be big media darlings all over the place, perhaps. You never know. So
media darling, that was my goal going in. I think when we were brainstorming.
I feel like the way this would go is we become media darlings. Bobby starts a solo career because he feels like I'm holding him back. We both get really bitter and resentful. We both do our own thing. It doesn't work nearly as well as we hoped it would work. 20 years later, we finally reconcile. And, I feel like that's essentially the next 30 years mapped out.
In a nutshell, I thought we actually planned on doing that.
The stylistic direction's already, I mean, you can see it. Like, I got plants in the background. Bobby's got a shadow. I'm bald. Bobby's got a ridiculous headband. Like, you can already see the split here, right? You can already see where what we want from life is very different. Bobby's having a child. I add my plants. So.
The yin and the yang.
Conspiracy theories, sound logical judgment. There's just it can't work forever. But
Mike, I posted this this poll. I want to get your opinion because we feel like we've all got a certain. I'll just read it. What are you least likely to ever do again when everything goes back to normal?
Just gave up there.
Oh, yeah, fuck it. So what are you least likely to do out of these four things ever again? Dine in at a restaurant, go to a gym, attend a sporting event, just had you in mind, or shake hands when all this is over.
You can see my arms in this shot. Does it look like I ever go to a gym? Come on.
Mike, you're wiry strong. Have you ever seen the replacements? Have you ever seen the replacements with the kicker? Yeah, I mean, the guns, put them away.
Look at that.
Dan, what do you got on that? What are you least likely to do after all this is over?
Well, I'm actually going to cancel my gym membership today since you mentioned it. It was on pause for 2 months, but I'm just going to nix it because until I'm like consistently lifting that stupid weight that it's in my house that I've been sporadic with, like I just need to get very regular and consistent before I like bother spending more money on the gym. I've been running a lot and, but there's like other stuff I should foundationally do first before I go back, especially while it's going to be sketchy. I'm not I don't like care that much about the restaurant scene. So I'm not eager to run back in there. Also DC's reopening today in phase 1. Their phases are, and I really do commend Mayor Bowser for what she's done. It's been very like algorithmic, I guess you could say it, as far as their reopening. But let me pull this up and I'll give you the glimpse because this is it's a little bit baffling. So phase 1, let me see if I can find this. So phase 1 is today, and that just means I think you can sit outside at restaurants and maybe, I don't know, there's not a whole lot more you can do. I don't know if I'm going to find this. Their website's just cluttered and awful. But here's the big thing that stuck out to me, which is phase 3 is like all clubs and bars can reopen with a max of 5 people per 1,000 square feet. It's like, in what world does that make any sense? In what world?
Talk about a rager.
20 people in a 4,000 square foot bar. Like, just put them out of, just like, hey guys, just go out of business. Like, just, I'm all for it being safe. That just like doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see how that can be viable for anyone. It's like, I don't know. I don't really understand. So
yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But I feel like the party in that, there's gonna be 20 people in that 4,000 foot bar, but they're all gonna be right next to each other because they need to interact. You don't go there to be by yourself. You go there to interact and just
fist 5 tables of 4 people in a 4,000 square foot restaurant. And 4,000 square feet for like a one, first level of like a,
Huge.
town. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's very big.
Well, what do you think sporting events are going to look like? They're not going to look much different when they come back.
I think sporting events are going to look exactly the same as they did before. From the fans'
Not right
perspective.
away. Not right away. No.
I think, let me rephrase that. I think the people that are attending these are going to treat it how they treated it before. They're going to be right next to everybody. They're going to touch the same amount of stuff that they touched. I don't think there's the caution. And I say this because, so Wisconsin has opened up for youth baseball. Mike obviously knows, Dan and I have both been in youth baseball for tournaments. And the group message I'm in with all these coaches and all the coaches are from Illinois, is that you would think that nothing happened at Wisconsin based on how everybody was acting at this tournament. And I think that is going to be the sentiment for a lot of people that do end up attending the sporting events. I feel like if you're going to attend a sporting event with Giants game with 80,000 people, 8,000 seats, you're probably at least more liberal with, what you're doing. You're not practicing social distancing in general. I think people that are going to attend this stuff, at least, especially when it opens back up, are going to treat it just how they treated it before.
And it's going to lead to a whole wave of what, if that's how it goes.
We can say crap on here.
Whole wave of crap, a second wave of crap, if that's how it goes. Because that's a mass of humanity that is not giving a what about each other, and that's a big part of what's kind of led to the spread of this thing in the first place. So if you open stuff up too soon and you have a big mass sporting event with 80,000 people and you don't do the social distancing stuff, then you're asking for it.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
I just got breaking news on my phone that says La Liga is resuming June 11th, which seems pretty quick for major soccer.
I assume with no fans, right?
So here I pulled up the DC
I didn't pull it up.
3-stage plan. You guys ready?
Yes.
So stage 1, which is today, which again, I think the mayor's done a really good job here in DC. I just don't see how this is going to help businesses. So stage 1, hotels and accommodations are open with safeguards. Same with construction sites, which people have been doing construction anyway. I've been watching a building getting built right across the block. Office spaces, work from home recommended. Restaurants and food, open outdoor seating with physical distance and safeguards. Bars and nightclubs still closed. Non-essential retailers can provide curbside and delivery service. So Best Buy can deliver me a toaster now. Barbershops and hair salons, 5 people per 1,000 square feet. And select libraries can provide limited curbside service. So if I need to read War and Peace and I don't want to buy it, I can now get my copy, thank God. Places of worship, up to 10 people in groups. Parks and tennis courts, golf courses can reopen. Playgrounds are closed. That's essentially it. And there's not that many differences in phase 2. More venues open, up to 50 people. Gyms can reopen. They can't reopen now. Again, gyms and studios, 5 people per 1,000 square feet. Okay.
Did anybody pace off 1,000 square feet for reference, or did that just sound like a good round number for anybody?
I don't know, but dude, that's where I really just don't understand, because phase 3, all stuff's back open, blah, blah, blah. But, like museums are in phase 2, which I think a lot of people in DC, because there's so many great museums, are ready to go back there, have something to do. Same thing, 5 people per 1,000 square feet. Of course, those might be 100,000 square feet. So that's 500 people, but that's still crickets. I just don't, bars and nightclubs can't open in phase 1 or phase 2. In phase 3, 5 people per 1,000 square feet. So I just don't understand how those businesses can possibly recover at this point. And I'm not saying that that's a bad decision. Like, I believe in public health. I think, again, it's just a fascinating thing to think about how that can work financially. It's like, okay, you can reopen airplanes, but you can only have 30 people on your flight. It's like, well, the economics don't work, so let's just quit. Like the economics just don't work for a lot of things at reduced capacity. Like Mike said.
It's going to be an interesting, some of these states are wide open, like Florida, where things are open, Georgia, things are open. But some of the states, like in Illinois, where I'm at, I know people that are losing their businesses that aren't going to reopen come June 1 that I've talked to, and they're just said, like, we're just going to find a different avenue. Maybe they're going to stay in the same industry, but under the current situation where you can have people in Illinois, in Chicago, you can have people on your patio, your outdoor seating, but nobody inside. Well, outdoor seating in Chicago doesn't necessarily exist for all places. And if it does, it might only be a table or two. So it doesn't make, like Dan said, it doesn't feasibly make sense to ramp up operation again and for just to keep taking a loss.
Yeah.
Mike, are you still awake over there with all that Mountain Dew? I can't believe you drank all that Mountain Dew and you haven't had to get up and use the bathrooms since we
I
started.
have to piss like a racehorse, Stevens, but it's all right. So the things I do for you guys.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Mike, we appreciate you being here. This has been a long episode, and but it's been good. We appreciate your point of view, and I wish you luck, obviously, out there, and hope you get back to writing full time soon.
Yeah.
Man.
Me too, guys. It's been fun catching up with you guys. I enjoyed covering both of you guys, and hope to actually see you guys in person both sometime soon. Maybe at the Morning Brushback reunion after you guys split and go your separate ways, and then eventually rejoin as the biggest podcast on Spotify. So
easily, that reunion show is going to be epic.
Mm-hmm. Mike, just give our listeners your handles. Where can they find you? Where can they follow you on the web and all that stuff?
You guys can find me on pretty much every social media platform at Mashmore98, MASHMORE 98. Just don't send me creepy Instagram requests because I get those all the time. If you know me, cool. Yeah. If you don't, maybe you feel that one out a little bit first. And obviously on YouTube as well, Mashmore98 for the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast.
Yeah, Mike's a really good interviewer. He's a really good guy. We really appreciate him having him on the show. So, Mike, thanks again for being here. And Bobby, send us off, man.
Mike, we appreciate it. We'll see everybody Tuesday on the Morning Brushback.
Goodbye.